well, let me just watch and see what happens. And sure enough, I discovered that a lot of stuff I was seeing actually came to pass. When something didn't, I would dig into that and I would discover the mechanisms behind the scenes and be like, oh, that's why that didn't happen. And I could see how things changed over time. So this time when I was doing the look-see, I thought instead of all these little disconnected factoids, let me look at several big issues. And so I started out with a couple things that I thought were really useful to see. But then I thought, you know what, I want to focus deeply on the dollar. I want to focus deeply on cryptos and gold and silver. And I want to see what's happening with the cabal. And I want to see what's happening over the summer. You know, what are we doing? What are the people doing? And I was interested in what are the drivers that are pushing whatever I'm seeing. And so I was looking specifically at that. And so the first thing I asked, well, show me what's happening with the dollar. And so I saw this spindle with an arm sticking straight out, and the spindle was spinning around, and the arm had a handful of billions of dollars. And it was just spinning around and spewing dollars in every direction. And my first thought was, whoa, it was kind of a shock. But it struck me that was the money that Biden is giving out. That's the way money is being spent. Like, we can just print whatever we want. We don't have any limits. It doesn't have to fit a budget. It doesn't have to be on it. So that was the first thing I saw, and then the very next month I said, okay, let's go to May. What do I see? And I saw this big cork. And that was it, just cork. And I thought, nope, something's going to come along and put a cork in that bottle, and that money is going to stop. And so then I went to, that was the first half of May. And then I went to the last half of May and I said, okay, what's happening in the last half of May? I thought, let me drill down a little bit so I can see a little more detail. And I saw this thermometer, big thermometer, and the mercury went meow, right to the bottom. And my thought was, something in the financial system is going to freeze up. And so, and then I kept watching, thinking people are going to freak out, but they didn't. They kept right on buying, they kept right on investing, they kept right on spending, and I was just stunned. It's like, well, what are you doing? The money system is freezing up. People either didn't know or didn't care, or felt that they were going to get ahead of it. That was actually quite a bit of it. And there was also an attitude that said, no, this is only May. I was looking at late May, early June. We can't have a financial crash at this time of year. We have them in October. And I was like,
right.
I don't think that that's very good thinking. But then, I went on to July. People were really living on financial fantasies. That really bothered me. I don't know what's happening out there, why people, if they don't know how the system works, if they don't understand the checks and balances that are in place around the financial system, if they're not watching what's happening in the rest of the world, we cannot carry on like we're the be-all and the end-all and we're not affected by what anybody else is doing. And right now, half of the rest of the world is saying, no, we don't want dollars. They are not accepting dollars and they're not trading in dollars. And I think that some of that spewing of dollars is to get us to believe that, it's a distraction move. That dollars are okay and they're plentiful and we're fine. And I don't think that's the case at all.
Wow. And what do you think? May I interrupt you and ask you a
Yeah,
question?
go ahead.
What do you think those fantasies are? You're saying living in a financial fantasy.
The very first thing that struck me was the fantasy that my pension was okay. The next thing was that I could live on cryptos. And we'll come to cryptos, which I then had further stuff happen after the look-see.
Okay.
But it was this idea that we are past the kind of crashes or recessions or depressions that occurred in 1929 and
Yeah.
2008, that can't happen. That's the illusion. And the other half of the illusion is that it doesn't matter what the rest of the world does.
Right.
And I have to say, in a world where everybody's communicating and everybody's watching what everybody else is doing, you have to be, we're connected.
Right.
This is part of the world coming together. And so we can't operate in a vacuum or as if we're the only ones making the decisions and calling the shots.
Mm-hmm.
So here,
Okay.
so I got into, did you have another question?
No, I understand now. I wasn't sure what you meant about the fantasy. So that would also entail that at some point these people are going to have a rude awakening. So I'm not sure if you're in your timeline, if you've seen that or.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Okay. So keep going here. I see where you're going. Okay.
So I went on to, look, by the time I got to the end of July, it actually, I wasn't sure if I was looking at heat exhaustion or just mental emotional exhaustion. People were just like eyes glazed over. I don't care. I don't want to hear. I don't want to know. And I thought, oh, wow, we're beginning to hit the wall in terms of our ability to be resilient and to keep moving forward. And so everybody was sad, everybody was overwhelmed, everybody was tired of everything. And in August, it looked like there was a lot of people that were past their limit. They were either dropping dead, I hate to say that, or they were dropping out of the whole system, or they were just dropping into this depression that was it was discouraging to see. And the financial system, which had just kept limping along, was now, it looked like it was obviously going down. And I thought, isn't that interesting? People said, no, we can have a financial crash now, even though it started in May. It didn't really become obvious to people who aren't used to looking deeply until September. And then it was right on schedule from that point on. So at that point, I thought, okay, let's look at the crypto economy, because I was worried that the crypto was part of the financial fantasy.
Right. And in the last interview you did too, you weren't sure anymore about crypto, having had asked people to look into it and then thinking, oh, maybe it was a trap. Those were the words. And folks, bring that back up again too, because if you haven't seen that episode, it'll bring a lot of context to what we're discussing tonight. So let me just show you that on the screen and bring that link back down very quickly for you. And Penny, before we get into the crypto talk too, let me just quickly thank our PayPal tip jar donators. And there's a few already who just come in. And thank you so much, everyone, for that. Really appreciate it. Of course, we're demonetized here on YouTube, and we're doing our best, so we're 100% viewer funded. So if you guys like these shows, please do consider.
Oh yeah, please. Yeah. Claudia has really taken the telephone pole upside the head more than once.
Right, exactly. Datkins Valenzuela, I love that name. Merci beaucoup. She says, just to support you, Jean-Claude. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Walter, thank you so much. And he says, love to have Penny on. Thanks for all you do. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right. Okay, let's get into the crypto. Well, very quickly, share with the audience who might not have seen the show what your thoughts were in the Storm Clouds Gathering episode about maybe where crypto were going, and then we'll move forward to this look-see and see if you're validating it or if we're changing the
Okay. So what I saw, so this is going to sound discouraging at first, but it ends up being good. Okay. So back then, what I saw was that cryptos dropped. There were two drops. and they were fairly big. And I thought, oh, wow, okay. So I wanted to see, do I still see, I thought we had already had one drop. So while I'm looking, I started looking, I think it was on the 4th of April, Easter Sunday was when I started looking. And I thought, I think we've already had one drop. Do I see another one? So then I'm looking at the April crypto, and it was perking along, and I thought, wow, there's still a lot of people waiting to become millionaires. And the attitude was that the gains they'd already had were not enough. And that there was a worry. I developed this like, how much is enough? At what point do you have enough sense to take a little bit off the table? Just waiting for more. At what point do you say, okay, that's enough. I've got enough to live on. And so it was the feeling I had was watching a lot of people who were into crypto, who were really not understanding how to think about money, how to handle money, how to prepare for wealth. The wealth is a lot of work, let me tell you. I have been a consultant for some very, very, very wealthy people. And the work that they do to try to manage that is more than a full-time job.
Yeah.
With the idea that you're just going to make money and sit back on your laurels. And one thing is going to happen is the government's going to come in and say, you owe us 50% of that. And then it gets eaten up by all sorts of little things. Oh, I got to have this. Oh, I got to have that. First thing you know, you're back to looking for a job.
Wow. And then you have to deal with the tax man.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, before we get into crypto, you just did the first part here. What's the story with the IRS? We're hearing reports that a lot of people are not filing. Is it going to be dissolved? Are people going to have to file their taxes this year? Have you looked into that? And what's your...
Little bit.
Little bit.
Yeah.
Do you want to catch it now, or is there a place later on in your timeline that makes sense? I just didn't want to forget.
Let me finish the cryptos, and then we'll go to that, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Very good.
Okay, so there was just this whole feeling that people were not prepared to be millionaires or more, billionaires, etc. So then in May, I wrote in May there was a downturn, but I didn't think it was too drastic. But in the day that I posted this, which I think was the 15th, it dropped and kept on dropping. And I thought it had gone down 9,000. I said maybe in the range of a $7,000 to $9,000 drop, and it really dropped closer to 15. And I'm not sure what it's doing now. I haven't looked at it for a day or two. But there was this sense of impatience that followed that drop in this uncertainty. A lot of people were uncertain regarding whether to cash out altogether, and the question I was asking, well, what are they thinking? And I had an instant picture of the I think it's the Pentacles card, where this guy is leaning on his rake or his shovel or whatever, and he's looking at this bush with all these pentacles hung on it. And it's the card of asking yourself, is this worth it? And I thought, oh, so people are not sure that it's worth it. And then it stayed cooled off into June, and maybe even through June. Some cryptos were still doing okay. The biggies, the main ones. Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, Litecoin, Beta, some of those. And by July, everybody was back to holding on for dear life again, and waiting for the situation to improve, which it was doing, but it was much slower than it usually does. And July was really a difficult month for people, not just because their crypto was worth less, but because there was so much crap happening in the society. So the people waiting, and so the carrot of, that's held out in front of your nose can I change my life? Do I dare change my life? I was afraid that a lot of people were just going to keep chasing the carrot, and they weren't realizing that, yeah, I can change my life now. Let's do it now, etc. And so they're going to miss the opportunity. So in the beginning of July, the cryptos went up a little bit, but they didn't go up as much as I wanted them to.
Okay.
And there was this awareness, and so that's where I got into, like, what's driving this? That was where I had the,
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get going here. That was Penny Kelly on Jean-Claude Beyond Mystic. I would recommend watching that. Watch the whole video on Beyond Mystic. It's a YouTube channel. It's definitely worth it. Right now, I want to talk a little bit about silver. This is a article from the 13th of April 2021, which is 2 weeks ago roughly. No, maybe more, like about a month ago. LBMA, which is the that's a bullion. LBMA, what does that stand for? NASDAQ Precious Metals Data. So anyways, it's an official site. They're saying that there's a buying frenzy in the silver market and silver shortages. And so I would recommend people be buying up all the silver you can get. I am buying as much as I can get. Cliff High in his data sets shows it at $600, and then it goes to $1,000. There's periods of time when there's none available, and it eventually goes beyond the price of gold. Now, when that happens, who knows? I think that we're in the scenario where it's getting ready to happen. Anyways, so that's all I wanted to talk about that. So we'll continue on with this presentation that we were doing about prisons and prisoners. They always want Federal Reserve notes. If they find you, they always want Federal Reserve notes. And so you have to understand that it's always about the money. About the fake money, I should say. It's always about the fake money. So I would, that's why my Form 1020 works so well, because there's no lawful money in general circulation. And even under their international law, under their Uniform Commercial Code that we were talking about earlier, this is all Roman cult. Anyways, there's a distinction between a debt discharged and one paid. When discharged, the debt still exists, though divested of its character as a legal obligation during the operation of the discharge. You know, these bar member scum lay awake at night with this stuff. That's why I immediately, anytime, and I'm going through all of my old issues, and I'm filing bar grievances against the bar members. And anytime I have any issue, it's always a bar member behind it. Think about it. Anytime you have any issue with anybody, there's always a bar member behind it. So just file bar grievances against the bar member. That's where it all goes to. Cryptocurrency is not a forced loan. Anything can be used as a medium of exchange as long as we agree to it. It's called barter. Gold or silver coin is exchanging one thing of value for something else of value. That's common law. My blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile is at Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page, I deleted it due to censorship on the part of Facebook. I have a private group at Facebook that's being deleted, but you know, quite frankly, I haven't been to Facebook in months. Excuse me. Facebook is a has-been, haven't been there in months. I've got my Yahoo private group. Yahoo deleted all their private groups, and so I migrated all of that list over to free lists. And there's also a Google private group. They're both called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. Follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. I've got a library profile. My Patreon is Sovereignty International, and I've got a MeWe group. Anyways, all of this requires citizenship to be the opposite of what the founders intended. The founders really, they did a lot to protect, you know, their posterity. And but that's why it requires that citizenship to be the opposite of what the founders intended. Congress converted citizenship into the opposite of what the founders intended for the purpose of enslaving everybody. And while the 14th Amendment does not create a national citizenship, it has the effect of making that citizenship paramount and dominant instead of derivative and dependent upon a state citizenship. So think about it. In the definitive Treaty of Peace, it says that the King of England hereby recognizes the United States, and that it says viz, B-I-Z, in other words, and then he lists all the states. And so you think about it. Before the federal government existed, there was just the state governments. And so the we the people that's talked about in the preamble to the Constitution is state citizens. It's not federal citizens, not U.S. citizens. They're state citizens. That's we the people. And so that's what this court case is talking about. Prior to the 14th Amendment, you couldn't be a federal citizen without first being a state citizen. And after the 14th Amendment, it made it paramount and dominant. U.S. versus Rhodes, that was Colgate versus Harvey, U.S. Supreme Court. U.S. versus Rhodes, the amendment reversed and annulled the original policy of the Constitution. Black's Law Dictionary even talks about it. 14th Amendment creates or at least recognizes for the first time a citizenship of the United States as distinct from that of the states. It was we the people, state citizens, that created the government, the Constitution. The term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states in that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. Citizenship is a political status and may be defined and privilege limited by Congress. Every taxpayer is assessed to a trust having sufficient interest in preventing abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. And that's a summary from Inri Bolins. Sad will be the day when the American people forget their traditions and their history and no longer remember that the country they love, the institutions they cherish, and the freedom they hope to preserve were born from the throes of armed resistance to tyranny and nursed in the rugged arms of fearless men. No joke. DC Code was passed in 1901. Act to establish a code of law for the District of Columbia. That eventually became United States Code. Or they just changed the name to United States Code. The legal estate to be in necessity use, that's at 31 Stat 1432. That's all tied into the Roman cult. And we were talking about that earlier, okay? It's all, every time, all roads lead to Rome, remember? It's all goes back to the Roman cult. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. That's the Roman cult, folks. For when they were driven out of all their former holds, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted, not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs, to the use of the religious houses. That's the Roman cult, folks. It's amazing how, well, we'll read this, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, and receiving the actual profits, while the season of the land remained in the nominal fief, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks, and is still under the direction of the Roman cult, to be bound in conscience to account to assestic use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. That's taxes, folks. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. And that's Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 2, under the definition of mort main. This is all tied into the Roman cult. It's where it all goes. This is where it's codified in United States Code or DC Code, whichever way you want to call it. At 15 U.S.C. Section 44, definitions, corporation shall be deemed to include any company, trust, so-called Massachusetts trust, or association, incorporated or unincorporated, that's organized to carry on business for its own profit or that of its members, and has shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest. And then it has the same definition, except it doesn't have shares of capital, stock, or certificates of interest. And it doesn't include partnerships, which is kind of interesting. Does not include partnerships. That's why LLC that's set up as a partnership is so powerful. You see those things all over the place. So this is some of the different disinformation you see around nowadays about the birth certificate. The birth certificate's what creates the Sesticate Trust. Many people are getting their birth certificate authenticated by the U.S. Secretary of State, thereby claiming to capture the account with the Treasury, and there is definitely an account with the Treasury. Doing this puts you into international law. And so the question is that you're hoping to get access to the funds that are in that account, but if there's a couple things going on here, it's putting you into international law, number one, and number two, the birth certificate's a fraud. And if you participate in the fraud, then you can't claim fraud anymore. This is Article 22 of the Convention concerning the International Administration of Estates of Deceased Persons, which is Hague Conference on Private International Law, 2nd of October 1973. Any person who pays or delivers property to the holder of the certificate drawn up and, where necessary, recognized in accordance with this convention shall be discharged unless it is proved that the person acted in bad faith. So this is the convention concerning the international administration of the estates of deceased persons. That's why it's international law. It's private international law is what it is. Any person who has acquired assets of the estate from the holder of a certificate drawn up and, where necessary, recognized in accordance with this convention shall, unless it's proved that he acted in bad faith, be deemed to have acquired them from a person having power to dispose of them. This is all international law. The birth certificates of fraud. If you participate in the fraud, you cannot claim fraud. If you participate in the fraud, you go into international law. Any fake money in the Sestake trust account is in international law. This is actually taken from, this is the birth certificate content review from the New South Wales Registry of Births and Deaths and Marriages. This is, so this is Australia, from the Australia, and it's actually certified that it's a true copy. The certification down there. Anyways, from the Attorney General, the New South Wales Attorney General. And right here, I'm going to zoom in on this a little more. I wanted to show the certificate of it's notarized, so it's a true copy. This is certified that it's a true and correct copy of the original document. So then let's get in closer here. A birth certificate is used to establish identity and enable individuals to establish their rights and discharge their obligations in respect of services provided by the government and private sectors. So that's what they can be used for, I guess, according to the New South Wales Attorney General. But it's all international law. Article 4, Section 2 says Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. And that means if you're subject to rules and regulations, then you're property. And this is consistent in all countries. In Canada, there's the evidence, the Canadian Ownership and Control Determination Act. Owned means subject to the regulations. And all corporations are property of the government. Section 3, Government Corporation Operation Act of Canada. Every corporation is, for all its purposes, an agent of Her Majesty and Right of Canada. The bitch. Agent of the bitch. Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. Therefore, non-resistance to tyrants is obedience to Satan. That's true. Well said. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video. On YouTube, don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. On Steemit, don't forget to vote and make your comments. There's my front page of my channel. The subscribe button's already clicked. The bell isn't. You click, the arrow's pointing at the bell. When you click the bell, it'll look like it's vibrating. That's why they have to pass statutes for common law offenses like murder and kidnapping and assault. That's why all statutes are edicts under martial law. Because it's all under martial law. We can't even begin to count the number of times judges, lawyers, and statesmen have said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by statutes. They would be more truthful if they said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by martial law. And that's taken from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ellett of the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner. There's no common law offenses against the United States, only those acts which Congress has forbidden with penalties for disobedience of its command or crimes. Martial law. Under Texas law, no act or omission is a crime unless made so by statute. The legislature may create an offense and in the same enactment provide exceptions to its application. So then, think about it. state and federal statutes all apply to government employees. Under a military dictatorship, there is no law, which is why they're required to pass statutes or edicts for common law crimes like murder and assault. This creates civil law, which creates a democracy. Under a military dictatorship, you have a democracy. It's mob rule. They can sit there and everybody, it's whoever the majority is, you can manipulate the masses and get them to do whatever you want them to do. It's all part of international law. I have exclusive content available on my website and on Patreon. This video is going to be unlisted on YouTube after we're done here. Website has 2 subscription levels, and I accept cryptocurrencies. A basic subscription level is $29.99 a year for the videos only. The $49.99 a year is for the platinum subscription level. Comes with unlimited consultations, but I'm not a liar. Well, I meant a lawyer. No, I meant a liar. But I can tell you what I would do under certain circumstances and where to find the forms. Now, the unlimited consultations does have limits too, quite frankly, because that doesn't include voice, or I should say, it doesn't include voice consultations. It's by email. Matter of fact, maybe I'll even add that in. And it doesn't include reviewing any documents. If you want me to review documents, then that's extra. That's another donation. The only power that the New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit, but I cannot fight all the battles. I need other people being on point. Some of my exclusive content is Arlington Private Information Share, Land Deed Training. There's about 3 videos for that. Estoppel Certificates Training, Foreclosure Estoppel Certificates Training, Corporate Denial Training, Toll Roads Notice and Demand Training, Invoice Training, Notice of Void Judgment Training, Revocation of Signature Training, Third Party Witness Training, Federal Habeas Corpus Training, Revocation of Voter Registration Training, Criminal Complaint Training. There's about 3 videos for that. Lawsuit Training, other training, depending on what it is. I'm open to doing other videos. The bar grievances videos are going to be on the exclusive side. My Patreons are going to have access to all of this stuff, but and they'll be on my website, available on my website as well. There's also going to be Northeast Private Information Share videos. All forms, files, and other instructions are available for free, linked on my videos and on my website. All exclusive content's available on my website and on Patreon, and you can buy a subscription there. Taxes caused the War of Independence. If they can tax you, then you are their slave. You are forced to work for them for nothing. It's becoming more and more difficult to be free. I mean, think about it. This video is about prisoners and prisons. And it's all coming from the Roman cult. They get you into one of their so-called contracts, and they need to convert your citizenship. I mean, it just goes on and on. What they have to do, but people are too stupid to figure it out. A republic is the only form of government which is not eternally at open or secret war with the rights of mankind. A subject is a slave. Taxation is forced work for nothing. All subjects over which the sovereign power of the state extends are objects of taxation, but those over which it does not extend are exempt from taxation. This proposition may be pronounced as self-evident. It's obvious. The sovereignty of the state extends to everything which exists by its authority or its permission. U.S. Supreme Court, 1819. That's back when we had judges. There are two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by sword and the other is by debt. Article 6, Clause 2, the Supremacy Clause. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. In other words, it doesn't matter what the Constitution or laws of any state say. The federal Constitution is the supreme law of the land. We're in the middle of a communist takeover is what's going on. The Constitution is not a document for the government to restrain the people. It's an instrument for the people to restrain the government. A nation of sheep will beget a government of wolves. It is the duty of the patriot to protect his country from its government. Any fraud makes it a nullity. The most solemn promise to pay, fraud obvioates the most solemn promise to pay. There's court cases that talk about that. Any fraud makes it a nullity. Yeah, you got that right about the Tree of Liberty, slick dissident. You got that right. Needs to be watered. It's going to get watered. It's all about territorialism. For U.S. citizens, every state is a territory, but they are still limited by Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, and Article 6, Clause 2. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square. As may by cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature. Okay, well, I can tell you, well, I'll finish reading this. Of the state in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, or other needful buildings. I can tell you that in Texas, there is no territory that was ceded to the federal government, and Fort Hood, that includes Fort Hood, was never ceded by the legislature of Texas to the federal government. None of the courthouses, none of anything was ceded to the federal government, and so then there's no federal enclaves in Texas. Bar members are required to know the law. Officers of the court have no immunity when violating a constitutional right, for they are deemed to know the law. The preamble of the Constitution. This is the most powerful thing that is there. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. and our posterity. So they said why they wrote the Constitution right there. If you read the Law of Nations, that's why governments are established. Establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare. That means the welfare of everybody. That's completely different than it talks about with the people who are on welfare right now. That has nothing to do with it. And secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. That's what I put in those bar grievances, is that I'm a direct descendant of the founders and one of the posterity found in the preamble to the Constitution. The Articles of Confederation are a compact between the states. The Constitution of the United States of America is a compact between the states. And we, the people, are the state citizens. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. That's Article 9, the 9th Amendment. At common law, we have unlimited rights. There is no lawful money in general circulation. In Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, no state shall make coin money, emit bills of credit, and make anything but gold or silver coin and tender in the payments of debt. That's why they had to delegate it, but they can't delegate it, quite frankly. Emitting bills of credit, that's what the Federal Reserve does, is these Federal Reserve notes are actually bills of credit. The United States shall guarantee every state of the Union a Republican form of government. That doesn't mean, they'll tell you that if you get to vote, then you're in a Republican form of government, and that's not true. Look what happened with the last election. They stole the election. Two national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument. Downs versus Bidwell, 1901. The style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. Articles of Confederation, Article 1. And yet, if you look in the passport, it just says United States of America. If you look on Federal Reserve, or I should say Silver Eagles, if you look all over the place, Air Force One, it just says United States of America. War is international law. Passport defined. A passport is a written document given to a person or persons by a commander of belligerent forces. Authorizing him or them to travel unmolested within the district occupied by his troops. Passports are issued by the State Department or similar office in other countries to diplomatic agents and others entering or traveling in foreign countries, which are of the same general character as those issued during war. The latter should, when practicable, have the photograph of the bearer attached. That's taken from the Rules of Land Warfare, 1914 edition, Passports, Safe Conduct, Safeguards, and Cartels. Chapter 7, Section 4, Article 276, page 100. There's a Federal Reserve note. It shows the United States of America in all block capital letters. That's not a Federal Reserve note. Although if you look at Federal Reserve notes right now, you'll see that they have the same thing there. This is a silver certificate, and it certifies that there is in deposit in the Treasury of the United States of America $1 in silver payable to the bearer on demand. That's issued in 1957. Land patents. This is a land patent, the first page on a land patent. That land patent actually had several pages, about 4, I think, 4 or 5 pages. Now that one has the United States of America spelled correctly. It's an established fact the United States government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9, 1933, 48 Stat 1, Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent. HJR 192, 73rd Congress in session June 5, 1933. Joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolve the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental offices, officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. That's taken from the Congressional Record, March 17, 1993, Volume 33. On the same day, March 9, 1933, since March 9, 1933, the United States has been in a state of declared national emergency. Under the powers delegated by these statutes, the President may seize property, organize and control the means of production, seize commodities, assign military forces abroad, institute martial law, seize and control all transportation and communication, regulate the operation of private enterprise, restrict travel, and in a plethora of particular ways control the lives of all American citizens. A majority of the people of the United States have lived all their lives under emergency rule. For 40 years, freedoms and governmental procedures guaranteed by the Constitution have in varying degrees been abridged by laws brought into force by states of national emergency. And that's U.S. Senate Report number 93-549, dated November 19, 1973. Do you think anything's changed? Absolutely not. And so it's now 73, 83, 93, 03, 13, and it's almost 23. So now it's 90 years, almost 90 years. Within 20 years, this country is going to rule the world. Kings and emperors will soon pass away and the democracy of the United States will take their place. When the United States rules the world, the Catholic Church will rule the world. Nothing can stand against the Church. That's Roman Catholic Archbishop James E. Quigley, Chicago Daily Tribune, May 5th, 1903. And there is evidence that that guy was right. If you notice the fascias on each side of the Speaker's podium in the U.S. House of Representatives. There's another picture of the same thing. This is Roman Conquest, 24th of April. I should say 24th of September 2015. This text here is kind of hard to read. And so what I did was I put it down on the next page. So we're going to go counterclockwise here, starting here and go around to there. Roman Achaea military staff, carried in battle by all Roman commands, planted on all conquered nations. That's pointing at the staff right here. It's this arrow right here, pointing at the staff. Then the next one is this one here, pointing at Joe Biden. That's who this is right here, Joe Biden. Devout Roman Catholic, honorary degree from Jesuit Scranton University. That's this arrow pointing at Joe Biden. Then it's this text pointing at these two Roman fascias. Roman bundle of rods bound to a weapon, symbolizing subservient under the rule of a single man. That's this text right here pointing up here, these two Roman fascia. Devout Roman Catholic, trained by Jesuits, installed first Jesuit chaplain to the house. That's this text here, pointing at Boner or Beaner or whatever his name was in 2015. And here's a picture that's in better light that you can see what's going on. There's the Roman staff that's planted on all conquered nations. And there's the two fasciae. Pope claims you're not a Christian if you own a gun. Of course, doesn't want you being able to defend yourself against tyranny. A republic is not law of nations. First of all, it's not international law. That means it's not martial law. Martial law is international law. It's not Uniform Commercial Code. It's not any of that. But in considering the question before us, it must be borne in mind that there is no law of nations standing between the people of the United States and their government. That means the state citizens. And interfering with their relation to each other. The powers of the government and the rights of the citizens under it are positive practical regulations, plainly written down. The people of the United States have regulated it, have delegated it to it certain enumerated powers and forbidden it to exercise others. U.S. Supreme Court. Color of law, according to bar members. Color means an appearance, a semblance, or a simulacrum, as distinguished from that which is real. A prima facie or apparent right, hence a deceptive appearance, a plausible assumed exterior, concealing a lack of reality, a disguise, or a pretext. See, all of those codes and statutes are actually color of law. Colorable mean that which is in appearance only and not in reality what it purports to be. Hence counterfeit, feigned, having the appearance of truth. Color of law means the appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right. Misuse of power possessed by virtue of state law and made possible only because wrongdoers clothed with authority of state is action taken under color of law. But in fact and in law, such statutes are intended to be applied to those who are here as residents in the state under the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Federal Constitution and the so-called 14th Amendment. That's the U.S. Supreme Court in the case U.S. versus United Mine Workers, and that's a summary from that case. At common law, our rights are unlimited. Every citizen and freeman is endowed with certain rights or privileges to enjoy, which no written law or statute is required. These are fundamental or natural rights, recognized among all free people. As a general rule, men have the natural right to do anything which their inclination may suggest, if it be not evil in itself and no way impairs the rights of others. If you want to be one of we the people, you cannot go into international law. If you go and get that birth certificate authenticated, then you're going into international law. And if you read that authentication statement that the Secretary of State puts, what they do is they certify the notary. That's all they do. And they say that we don't recognize the underlying document. They can't. It would be treason. So why would you go and do something like that? If you want to be one of we the people, you cannot go into international law. Once you go into international law in any matter, you cannot claim you're a sovereign ever in that matter. You're saying I'm just nobody. I'm a corporation. If you do, these so-called judges will see it and see that you do not know what you're talking about. They may just railroad you and let you deal with it. They may say you're crazy. They will certainly ignore what you're saying. But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. You're of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Bar members are liars, thieves, and murderers. Bar members know exactly what they're doing. Albert Pike was a Grand Master of the Freemasons. The Apocalypse to those who receive the 19th degree, the apotheosis of that sublime faith which aspires to God alone and despises all the pomps and works of Lucifer. Lucifer the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light with its splendors intolerable, blind, feeble, sensual, or selfish souls? Doubt it not. For traditions are full of divine revelations and inspiration is not of one age nor one creed. Plato and Philo also were inspired. And so what Albert Pike says basically in Morals and Dogma, in his book, he was a Confederate general and he was also a Grand Master of the Freemasons, and he says that they worship Lucifer. And that's the Roman cult as well. It's all executive branch under Article 1 of the Federal Constitution using bar members. The place where your rights are violated the most is in their so-called court. The best thing to do is, if you go and file a document that's like 30 or 40 pages, they're not even going to read it, quite frankly. A one-page response using Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, and file it into the court and keep a copy for evidence. And then file judicial complaint and bar grievances attaching your evidence. It's exactly what you do. I've got a couple other videos I want to go through before I talk about bar grievances, and the videos are basically going to go through why bar members are so much deserve the bar grievances. Let me tell you, and that's what you have to understand. Is all of this is coming from bar members. No matter what's happening to you, there's a bar member behind it all. All of this is coming from United Nations and international law. All of it's satanic. We need to also prepare bug out locations. We need to use virtual private networks. I use a virtual private network. It is called Private Internet Access, and the only information I gave them to get it was an email address, and I pay with Litecoin, so it's completely anonymous. And so private internet access. And so right now I'm surfing from, let me look. Oh, I'm not actually there. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to turn it on right now. See, there it is right there. So now I'm going to be surfing from Ontario, Canada. So I'm back on. I'm in Ontario. I'm surfing from Ontario, Canada. The thing about international law, this is where this is useful, because if they want to subpoena anything, they got to go to a foreign country. That's a lot more difficult. And these virtual private networks don't keep records. That's the idea. So we need to, the best answer to anything is Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, and then file bar grievances and judicial complaints. And I am starting to file bar grievances even against judges, because they're all bar members. The bar is regulated by the Supreme Court, and they know the law. Has anybody watched the movie Enemy of the State? I don't know, with Will Smith. I don't know if anybody remember that. I mean, they were watching him from space. They were watching him with satellites from space. And so I guess what my point is that there was a guy that I met. I went on this spike training with Bo Greitz. I don't know if you know who Bo Greitz was. He was the guy that the movie Rambo was written about, was the story behind the movie Rambo was about him. Anyways, he would go in with he was a lieutenant colonel in the army in Vietnam, and they would literally run into North Vietnam, pick up a downed pilot, and because he couldn't keep up with them, carry him on their back out of North Vietnam. And for 40 miles, they'd run 40 miles, and sometimes they'd be fighting every inch of the way. Anyways, he had this spike training, and I went there one time. There was several of them, and I didn't go to them all, that's for sure. Anyways, I went to one of them, and there was a guy there that was in the room when they were arguing over who got the satellite. Now, I think that, that was back in the 90s. So I'm sure that they've put more satellites in space by now. But they used to argue over who got the satellite. So anyways, another thing we need to be looking at is alternative remedies. We can't be trusting these sorcerers. They call medical doctors. Some of them are trustworthy, but I would say that many of them are not. So we got to do our own homework, investigate alternative remedies. As far as the birth certificate is concerned, I've heard that in Pennsylvania you have to get a court order to get the long form. So we need to get alternative remedies. You know, with all this stuff going on, these stories of shedding and everything that's going on, it's very possible you might see scenarios like some of these zombie movies. You know, you just don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen. But providence favors the prepared. So I know I have land. That's one reason that I was so interested in having absolute title to land, because I know that one day I would need it. And silver's going to pop here pretty soon. When it does, I'm going to buy myself a Class A motorhome, and with satellite dish and everything I need, and I'm going to park it out on my land and start building myself a house and a refuge, I guess you might say. So if anybody else is interested, I certainly want to make it available to other people of a like mind, place where they can stay. Kind of like what Bull Polney talks about it. I don't know if you've watched any of Bull Polney's videos, but he says that we're going to be able to build refuges. So anyways, we got to start be looking at that kind of stuff. I think that it's my opinion we're in Book of Revelation's time period. According to Bull Polney, the first and second seal have been broken, and very well could be. So we need to be preparing for any alternative, for any ultimate thing that might happen. I don't know, does anybody have any questions they want to talk about? I have videos about land and how to get absolute title to land. Now, if you're in Canada, there's ways of doing it in Canada, but you know, the communists up there don't want you doing it, so you're going to have a problem, or might. I would suggest, well, it's up to you. Canada's so damn cold. That's why I like it down in Texas and Arizona. Arizona's great, and there's a lot of like-minded people in Arizona. Love Arizona. Love Texas. Texas is good. I've been having my little battles in Texas, but I think I'm getting them under control. I guess we'll see. But so the bottom line is that it's a lot warmer in Texas and Arizona. Of course, you don't have the rainfall either, and there's other issues. It's desert. Yeah, China. China DACA. Yeah, really. I haven't heard about that particular bill, but back a few years ago there was a New Hampshire member of the legislature that contacted me and needed some information on a right to travel bill, and I think he actually did pass it, but I'm not sure. The problem is that all of these legislatures, all these bills have to go past a whole bunch of bar members. So these bar members keep control of everything. But you can have absolute title to land. I have several pieces of land that I have absolute title to. They don't even ask me for property taxes. I've met people who have never had their land on the tax rolls, and so that's what I'd really like to do is get a hold of one of these. Like I met this guy in Arizona. He was a mayor of Wilcox, Arizona, and I was talking to him, and he had 400,000 acres of land. Can you imagine? 400,000 acres. That's like about 20 miles by about 60 miles. That's like a huge tract of land. Anyways, I wouldn't mind getting to know somebody like that and, giving them some silver for like a section or something, I'm not greedy. A section's fine for me. But, when my cryptos come in, then that's when that'll happen. Or maybe, it depends on where silver goes. Cliff High says the silver is going to go to, is going to be at $600 an ounce. It's going to pop and go to $600 an ounce. And then it's going to go to, it'll stay there for a while and gradually go up. His next in his data sets, he saw it at $1,000 an ounce. He said he saw silver at $1,000 an ounce when gold is at $4,000 an ounce. So silver is going to go up a lot more than gold. I would highly recommend people to buy silver. And right now it is such a screaming deal. And so I would highly recommend people to buy silver. I'm buying silver. You got to decide what's right for you. But I'm not buying any gold. If I had gold, I'd be trading it in for silver. Anyways, I've got some silver. I've got some, in various places, and I want to buy more. As I get the money, I'm going to buy more. And when I think about it, a roll of Silver Eagles, right now you can buy a roll of Silver Eagles for, about $800. And so if it goes to $600, then that's $12,000. That roll of Silver Eagles that you buy for $800 will be worth $12,000. And so then, I don't know how many. If you got 10 rolls, then that's $120,000. Anyways, I am. That's what I'd like to do. Is I need most of my land is yeah, exactly. They're a rogue rebel. You're right. That's exactly. I know people that the same thing have done the same thing, and it doesn't. They don't pay tax on it. It's like it doesn't exist because you have the absolute title, the land patent from the government, and that's. I met people in Arizona that were the same way, and their father, it goes father to son, and the father will say, look, you can have that 40 acres over there, you know what I mean, and build yourself a house on it, and then before he dies or somewhere near that, they give him a quit claim deed, and they never record it. They never do any of that, and it just transfers in the family. And if you think about it, after you've been on it for 7 years, then it's squatter's rights. You own it, and so that's all that matters. And so if you've been on it for 7 years, nobody could say anything at that point, and it's just yours. And so I'd like to buy, I was looking at 3,200 acres west of Fort Worth, about 50 miles, but that's going to be a fair chunk of change, and I don't know that I want to spend that much money. That's 5 sections is what that is. That'd be a good piece of land. I'd love to have 5 sections. Even one section's a square mile. That'd be nice too. But most of I've got 20-acre parcel. I got a 10-acre parcel. I got some 5-acre and 1-acre parcels in Texas and Arizona, and so it's hard to find land that's less than $4,000 an acre. It really is, especially now that the inflation's heating up and all the rest of it. And so, it's just going to get more expensive with all this, money printing going on. So we all need to be looking at that anyways, and if we can get it, well, most of the people that are out in these areas are people like us anyways, and but it's good to network too. Like Springerville, there's a lot of really, I like Springerville in Arizona, which is it's about 10 miles from the New Mexico border. Springerville is a pretty good area. Or I was what's the other Springerville, or the county seat for Apache County, which is I can't remember the name of that. Anyways, there's some nice little towns up there in that area. It's a little cool in the wintertime, and it's certainly not as hot in the summer. But I was also thinking of east of Casa Grande. I used to live in Casa Grande. If you go east of there, south of Florence, there's a road that goes from Florence to Tucson, and it goes through this territory, this area that's just nothing there, and that'd be along that road there would be. I wouldn't mind getting some land along there too, because it's relatively close to Phoenix, and so then you can have the benefits of the city, and yet not be too close to the city. So, I've looked at a lot of things like that. That's actually, and it's warm. I like the heat. I'm telling you, I never realized how much I like the heat until I was went to visit my daughter. And I was at the Las Cruces, New Mexico rest area, which is on I-10, just north of El Paso. And I get out, and it's like a blast furnace blowing in my face. And I still remember thinking, man, does that ever feel good? Anyways, so I like the heat, I'm telling you. And if you can, have things set up properly where you're comfortable, then hey, why not, So, anyways, I think that's about it for today. We're going to start again tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock Eastern time. And does anybody else have any more questions? I'm going to sit here and see if you have any more questions. But yeah, this vaccine damage is really bad, and that's another reason we need to get away from the cities. The cities could turn into like zombies or something. Who knows what they're going to do? I wish I knew. It's just really hard to predict. And probably the best thing to do is just get away. I have always been a country boy anyways. I've always liked to be out in the country and and be close enough that I can go into the city if I feel like it. But other than that, I'm in the wide open spaces, and that's me, I'm telling you. And so everybody's got to do what they figure is right for them. But I think the cities are not going to be a good place to be here in the near future. So I guess we'll see. You know, and a lot of people are stuck in the cities because that's where you can, you know, make a buck. And it's hard to make a buck out in the middle of nowhere. But if I got a bunch of silver and I got a bunch of cryptos, then I'm not going to need to make anything. Of course, and I'm getting older. You know, shoot, I'm in my 60s, so, you know. I'm kind of like Cliff High. I mean, Cliff High is doing the same kind of stuff I want to do. I just wish I was doing it. In fact, he's doing all the same stuff, and I really wish him the best, and want to be going along the same path here as quick as I can. And so I don't know if you've been watching any Cliff High's videos. I highly recommend you watch him. He's got some really interesting videos. So anyways, does anybody have any more questions? If not, I think we're going to pull the plug here and call it a day, and we'll be tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Now I have software. I don't have to rely on another website. The other website was fine, you know, and it was easy, but so now I'm having to learn this software. But at least I got it going. And we'll be on 10 o'clock tomorrow morning on the 15th, starting 10 o'clock Eastern time. And we'll be talking about, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about, let me look here. We're going to talk about some disinformation and confusion. And we might talk about District of Columbia courts. And that'll be about it for tomorrow, probably those two. I got one that's security and privacy too that I want to go through this weekend. So we'll see. But I also want to do the bar grievances. The bar grievances is really, we really need to cover that. That's going to take a half a day at least. Tomorrow we're going to have, I know I'm going to have more people here tomorrow. It'll slow things down because there'll be people with questions and things like that, and that's okay. I'm not complaining. I like it when people have questions because a lot of times people think of things that I don't think of, and so then if they're thinking of it, then there's other people out there that are thinking the same thing, and so questions are good. I got no complaint about questions, and so I encourage questions. And so anyways, I think we're gonna cash it in for today, and we'll see you guys tomorrow morning 10 o'clock Eastern time for the Saturday event. Talk to you later. See ya.